Babysitters of Reddit, what's your demon child story? I have been babysitting for almost 10 years. Newish client, asked for some specific dates so she could complete her class. Only 2 hours. 3 kids. One was under a year, had colic. Easy. Well. The mom and dad must have a crappy relationship because the oldest child lost a game and proceeded to guilt his younger brother by not only calling him names, but insulting his intelligence and saying he was worthless. He wasn't even 6 years old. His younger brother was 4 and responded by crying, agreeing, and coming to the conclusion that he shouldn't have won because he wasn't smart enough. Yep, butthole child. I told him to go to his room after he refused to apologize for being mean. I walked him upstairs and told him it was only 5 minutes. He screamed, kicked the door, threw things at the door and then scratched me and told me I was stupid when I tried to sit him down and explain that he did something wrong. Let's just say I didn't go back. Then there are parents who just should not have had children. I was doing a test run a few hours in the afternoon with a mother who only had 1 child. During that time, I witnessed her spank, grab, drag, yell in the face, and toss around a 2-year-old. She screamed at him because he was cranky while she was on the phone. He also didn't share because since he was the boss child the other kids would be scolded if they didn't share with him. And then I watch a 6-year-old. She has some sort of multiple personality disorder, but I didn't know that the first time I watched her. She speaks to herself and me in third person, and she speaks of herself in third person, and always negatively. She also has anxiety and asks me about super creepy subjects. For instance, today, she asked me what would happen if someone just stopped eating. I told her they would probably die, and she looked wistful. She has also spoken to corners, but she likes me, and her mom pays me well, so I keep coming back. I babysat for the neighbor kid, quintessential spoiled only child. I was in my early teens and he was about 7 when this happened. I normally babysat during the week in summer while when school was out and his parents were at work, but occasionally they'd ask me to babysit for an evening out. This was one of those evenings. His parents were out with the mom's sister and brother-in-law, so I was taking care of the kid and his 5-year-old cousin. They were pretty bratty, but nothing I couldn't handle, until they decided that they had enough of me being in charge and got out their pocket knives. Yes, their dads had gone out and bought pocket knives for them at ages 5 and 7 and decided it was cool for them to have them with no parental supervision. So the boys got out their pocket knives and started chasing me around the house with them. I wasn't brave enough to try to disarm them, but I was smart enough to know these kids weren't able to understand the damage they could do, so I ran. They chased me out of the house and proceeded to lock all the doors. This was long before 13-year-olds had cell phones, but luckily I was just at the neighbors so I ran home. My dad is not a nice dude to begin with, but when I told him what was happening, he was livid. He went back with me and yelled for the boys to open the door. They unlocked it and then hid in the kids' bedroom. My dad ordered them into the living room so they hid under a blanket on the couch. He demanded their knives, so they handed them out from under the blanket. My dad went home, and I sat there while those 2 crapheads hid under their blanket until their parents came home. Now here's the kicker. When the parents pulled in, my dad came back over, told the parents what happened and handed them the knives. And the parents gave the knives back to the boys, in front of us. Somehow I still ended up babysitting for those jerks after that. Anyway, years later it came out there was some seriously fricked up crap happening to that kid, so no wonder he had some behavioral issues. Sad really. My sister babysits our neighbor's daughter and she brought her to our house to visit our cute golden doodle puppy. Brady, the puppy, ran up to the girl in excitement, and she choked the crap out of him and tried to hold his head on the ground. I made the little devil cry. That's when you hold the kid down by the neck and say you'll do great right beside Samantha buried in the woods, then let her go and get her to run home. I sat some of the kids my sister walked to after school daycare with. One mom had 3 kids, really nice dresses and jewelry, tons of toys for the kids and no furniture. The kids were jerks, didn't listen, but settled down once I put on movie. But that's not the demon child part. See, my sister and I are mixed race. Her son called my sister a N while walking to after school, for which another kid, the bad kid, promptly put his butt to the wall and made them apologize. That kid got into crap, but he had always been cool. Kid's mom doesn't see the issue with what her son says. About a week later, she calls me up to ask me to babysit. I tell her no and hang up. She calls back and my mom has to explain to her why I won't babysit for a woman who thinks of me as a N. How my mother did it with civility is a mystery that confounds God himself to this day. I also babysat for another girl. Her mom was nice, but had a serious drug problem, so she ended up living with her aunt and her perfect cousins. She was badly behaved and for reasons beyond me, couldn't go to daycare, so they needed a sitter for the summer, which was me. So, it's me and this 5-year-old, tantrum throwing girl and Nick Jr. in a house where I could never find a clean dish or good milk. One day, she's throwing a particularly big tantrum and runs to her room, which is really just a big closet that you can pass through to the bathroom. 1/2 bedroom apt. I run after and she's throwing her toys and she's screaming and she's crying and she's pulling her clothes down off the hangers and I hugged her. I didn't know what else to do, so I hugged her. She hugged me and cried and told me she missed her mom. We never had a problem after that. My mom and her aunt had a falling out. I forget over what exactly. In retrospect, I'm surprised at how long it took, but it happened. I wish I knew what happened to her, if her mom got clean and got her back, if she grew up happier. I hope she did. Holy crap. Hugs can change everything. You should do your best to track her down and see how good life has been. When I was 13, I was babysitting the 2 little boys across the street. At the time they were about 5, James, and 3, Ivan. When I got there, the mother told me that Ivan was recently potty trained, but he was rather private, would want to do his business on his own and that I should let him. Well, everything seems to be going well. We start watching Chuck Norris Texas Ranger and pretty soon Ivan says he's going to the bathroom, so he heads off and we continue watching Chuck. 5 minutes go by. 10. I go knock on the bathroom door. No noise. And it's locked. Great. I yell at him to open the door and he says no. Well, at least I know he's okay. I bang on the door, beg him to open it. Eventually I tell him if he doesn't tell to his dad he licked himself in there and was disobedient and his dad will whop him. 1980s. Rural area. We all got our asses beat. I wouldn't really tell them though. It was an empty threat. Well, he opens the door and he and the entire bathroom are covered in crap. He had taken a huge man-sized dump in the middle of the floor and then proceeded to sit in it, roll in it, and paint the entire bathroom with it. It was the most disgusting thing I had ever seen at that point in my life. There was crap in his hair. Then he looks me dead in the eye, says, "Kiss my poopy butt, lick it, eat my poopy." There were no cell phones back then, so my mom had to come over and help me out with cleaning up. The parents paid me triple, and that poor kid got the belt the second I left. There was no hiding what had happened, as there was poo on the shower curtain and a few other places we just didn't know how to really clean in just an hour or two. Yes, I babysat again. He never did anything that bad again, but he was always a very wild and emotional child. I worked for an emergency shelter for children who were taken away from their parents. Because of this, most of the kids were pretty messed up. One particular kid used to crap on the floor in the gym and then find it while the other kids were playing games in the gym. It was miraculous how fast he could make it happen and how slick he was. I would look away for a split second, and there it is. Every time he did it, gym time had to be moved outside and the gym would be closed for the rest of the day. I babysat for a family where both brothers were deaf. If I said something they didn't want to hear, no more TV, bedtime, etc., they would take out their hearing aids and close their eyes shut. It's hilarious now, but as a 13-year-old girl it was highly infuriating. That is hilarious. I can imagine they did it all the times to their parents. I hope they still do it when they're adults. My friend says that the kids she was babysitting tried to spike her water with rat poison on more than one occasion. I accidentally almost poisoned my mom. My mom was cleaning and left the Windex out. For whatever reason I thought it would be a good idea to put some in her soda. Luckily she realized pretty quickly and yelled at me for it. I think she realized that I wasn't being malicious, I was just trying to be a scientist. I used to babysit this little girl for my dad's co-worker, and when I first got there she was sweet as could be. First big problem though, she didn't speak really any English. So we had a communication barrier, but she's a little kid anyway, so I thought I could handle it. Second big problem, she did not freaking get tired. Ever. At all. And the third and final problem, she was a spoiled turd who didn't like the word no. By the time her parents got home, she had spent half the time yelling, threw her toys at walls and me occasionally, dumped my purse out and hid my stuff, screamed at me whenever I went into the bathroom, and she locked my cell phone in a room that they didn't have a key for. When her parents got home, they had to kick in the door to get my phone, and after being paid I basically ran out the door and went home to sleep because I was so mentally and physically exhausted. I only had to babysit her like 2 more times before they moved. Thank God. I was used to babysitting more than one kid at a time, and yet the child was almost too much to handle. Babysat a 5-year-old girl and a 9-month-old girl. I was only 14 at the time, and the baby wouldn't stop screaming bloody murder because her sister wouldn't stop pinching her every time I got her calmed down. The 5-year-old wouldn't eat her dinner and demanded the dried fruit mix from Costco that they had in their pantry. I figured a few pieces wouldn't hurt and she shouldn't go to bed hungry, so I gave her a handful and she would only eat the orange bits and literally threw herself on the floor from the brass stool she was sitting on and started screaming, which woke the baby up when I wouldn't let her pick through the bag. After I threatened to tie her up outside so the demons could come collect her. Looking back, that was a bad decision, but I was inexperienced and really didn't know what else to do to make her shut up, unless she calmed down. She ate the fruit mix and I calmed the baby back down. I had baby on my hip when she turned around, looked at me, said she'd rather die than stay with me, and then shoved like 4 pieces in her mouth and swallowed them whole. She started choking, so I put the baby down, which made her start screaming bloody murder again and started swiping her mouth. She bit me and gave her a couple Heimlich thrust maneuvers. She went to bed after that and I locked her in her room. She cried and screamed, but I just couldn't handle it anymore. I called my mom in tears, and then the mom and dad came home maybe 20 minutes after that, but they were only gone for about 4 hours. It felt like longer. I walked home and never babysat for them again. I can't stop laughing at the part where you threatened to tie her up outside. Babysat for a family with 3 kids. I also cooked, did laundry, and picked up groceries for them off the clock. Oldest was about 5, and one day I caught him sitting on the middle child's chest, punching away at his face. I knew my punishments were very limited, so I grounded him to his bed with only books to amuse himself. For 5 minutes, I tended to the other 2 kids when I heard a small crashing noise. I check the bedroom and see the boy has busted out the screen window and is now running naked across the lawn on his way to the 4-wheeler. He hopped on and got partially into the field behind the house. Note, he was not naked when I placed him in his room. I grounded him to the bed because he was spoiled as frick and didn't care about being grounded. Too many toys. I knocked on the mom's home office and got chastised for giving too harsh a punishment. This is why the few times I babysat I required that I am allowed to punish and do as I see fit to get the children under control, while not doing any long-lasting or permanent harm. Kid doesn't behave, do they will. I'm 14 years old and my mom's friend calls with an emergency. Her normal babysitter backed out on her last minute, so she asked if I could sit her autistic 8-year-old son for a few hours. Sure, I say, why not? So I get to the house and the kid wants to watch some cartoons. So we watch cartoons. Then he gets bored and wants to play hide and go seek. I tell him to go hide and I'll come look for him soon. I continue to watch cartoons for 10 more minutes before I realize I should probably be looking for him. Now I was on the bottom level, and they had one of those split level houses where you walk in the front door and you can either go upstairs or downstairs. So I start walking up the stairs yelling, "Gregory, where are you?" You know, the usual. So I get to the foyer landing in the middle, and this kid slides out from the hallway to the top of the stairs. Tom Cruise risky business style, except he is butt naked and he screams, "You scared my pants off." Now this kid is fairly large, weight and height wise. This was also the first penis I had ever seen. I was immediately scarred for life. Called my mom, explained the situation and that I was not fit to babysit anymore. She came and took over and I walked home and sat in silence for a while. I also have never babysat since then. The pants line was pretty clever though. My cousin babysat and told this one at dinner. She was babysitting 3 kids, and they were fine all evening until she tried to put them to bed. The older 2 were fine, but the youngest, 5, kept running out of his room and around the house. After the 3rd time of putting his to bed, she heard a noise from his room. She goes up and opens the door to see him standing in the corner, facing a wall. She tells him to get into bed, but he says but he wants you to read us a bedtime story. She noped out of there very quickly. I can't stop picturing the red guy from Insidious perched high in the opposite corner. Honestly, the worst kid I ever babysat was my brother. He has major anger issues and my mom was a single mom who worked full time, so by the time I was 10 I was alone with Hi, before or after school till mom got home. After was the worst as his meds would have worn off by then and he literally turned into a demon child. The threatened so many times to stab me that I hid all the knives. He once threw his skate at my back because I told him he couldn't sharpen his skates with a pumpkin carving knife. I actually used to call my mom so often at work because he was out of control and I was afraid of what he would do that she got told she wasn't allowed calls to work anymore or she would be fired. He's still a troublemaker to this day. Not as dangerous though, but the hardest part is he mainly only acted that way with me, so everyone knew I was exaggerating. Not a babysitter but a camp counselor. Most of my kids were lovely. I had kids from ages 6-16. One of the kids, Justin, was 12, but he was 6 feet tall, a bit annoying and sometimes didn't know when to stop a joke, but overall a nice kid. He got along really well with the younger kids, which sometimes looked odd because of how large he was, but in reality we realized he got along well with the younger kids because he had a mentally disabled little sister. One of the other 12-year-old girls didn't like Justin. She was a gossipy brat. Her little sister was also in the camp and had been hanging around Justin. She started making up rumors that Justin was hurting her little sister and that he was creepy and told her mom about it. Mom comes in and starts ranting about this other 12-year-old because her precious daughter told her things and how she wants him kicked out of the camp. Luckily we knew this kid for years and we're watching them constantly. We said we would monitor the situation, but no way in heck were we going to kick out a 12-year-old based on rumors that we knew this girl had started. This girl thought she was going to get what she wanted because her mom believed her. What she didn't know was that we took note of her own bad attitude. My wife babysat an 8-year-old autistic boy who attempted to drown his sister at the pool. Then he proceeded to attack my wife when she tried to stop him. He bit and bruised her before another woman at the pool, could get him settled down. When the boy's mother got home, he started crying and acting apologetic. His mother never punished him, so we've heard he continues to abuse his new babysitter. Bonus: he also regularly attacked the family dog and got him such frenzy they had to put him down. The dog, not the psychopath child. People think because they are autistic that they don't know any better. Bulls, they have challenges with a lot of things, but they also know right from wrong. You can have an autistic kid who is also a brat. This both about a demon child and me not being very nice to him. I'd babysat for this family probably about 8 times by now, and it was an 8-ish-year-old daywalker boy and 2 younger girls. The girls were always so sweet, but the boy was, mostly, always mean-hearted towards them and me. The parents knew he had a problem, but I seemed good with it and could handle it for the most part. One day this kid was extra bad. Don't even remember what he was doing, but just super mean to his sisters all day and wouldn't listen to me the slightest. I can usually deal with him and this family, but today it was consistent without letting up. So after one incident, after being a crappy kid all day, I grabbed him intensely and held him down and talked to him very sternly, pretty much about how he is so mean and has a mean heart, and told him to look inside himself and ask himself why he is so mean all the time. I didn't really expect to say this to him. I just did because I was so fed up, and it's really what I thought about him, and it came out of my mouth with my bit of rage and being fed up. Anyway, he cried once. I'll let him up. It could have been coincidence, and I don't remember if I told the parents or he did, but I don't think I got called back after that. I watch my husband's little cousins during the week to make extra money. They aren't a nightmare in the traditional sense. They are just horrible kids. They have no manners. They don't listen. They are completely oblivious and rude and so inappropriate. The 6-year-old watches YouTube all the time and think he is hilarious because his mom laughs at everything he does and his 3-year-old brother basically just copies everything his big brother does. I have 2 kids, a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I honestly don't know how much longer I want these boys around my kids. Even though they are their cousins, they are giving my kids bad habits and personality traits at such a critical time in their lives. I punish them and have tried for the last 5 months to instill manners and respect in them to no avail. I'm so done, and honestly it has ruined my relationship with them. Hopefully not for good. Parents who do not follow through with threats. Demand respect and discipline your children properly. You are making crap future generations. I was just a kid in high school trying to pay for my cheap first car, and the demons I babysat were nice enough the first few times. Their parents said we go through a lot of sitters. They never seem to like anyone, but they really like you. It was a girl and her little brother. I'd say 9 and 6. Babysitters were just a plaything to them. The second time or so there, the girl said lil bro pulled a knife on a babysitter once. LOL. I said, well, you're not going to do that to me, are you? He didn't answer. He kinda did. I played it off like he was joking about the previous time, and it seemed to work. It was clear when it was over, we had the worst night possible. They obviously no longer liked me, and it was a game to make my life heck. They ran around destroying the house, breaking every rule their parents had, and not at all listening to me telling them the rules. I didn't lose my crap. I just sorta made sure they didn't break anything or hurt themselves. Their father had this super strict rule about a practice exercise rowing machine that they had. They talked about how past sitters had used it and didn't put the settings back the way it was. I didn't give .001 shoots about this rowing machine, but the girl knew it was a weapon when she wanted to eject a babysitter. She reconfigured every setting, and when her parents got home, told them I did it. It sounds retarded that this was such a huge deal, but it was a hot button issue and they were told this moments after walking into a wrecked house. I thought, am I going to fight to correct this story? Nope. I regret letting the kids think they won, but I'm sure they grew up to be crappy people, so, joke's on them. Most of the kids I babysit are great, considering most kids act up around the babysitter just to see their reaction or see what they can get away with. I can handle that. Heck, I am sure I did it to all my babysitters. This one kid though, he loved to torture me. He knew I always gave a good report to his parents. If they knew their kid was a butthole to me, they'd feel bad for me and stop asking me to babysit, and they always paid me well, so I definitely didn't want that. Cue the torture. One time he was in the tree fort and dropped through a kid's telescope in my head. It hurt so bad and I had a headache for days after it. Another time he closed my finger in a door, right on the joint. It hurt so bad I really thought it was broken. This crap didn't happen often, and sometimes he was really nice and wanted to play board games and stuff. He's definitely better now that he's a little older, but I'm gonna give him crap for it when he's older and can understand that he was an butthole child. Pour gasoline on him and catch him on fire. It's the only rational decision. Okay, I was the demon child in this one. Had a joint holiday with our neighbors and they got a local babysitter for me and the friend's daughter. We were as good as gold. Went to bed. No problem. I think she woke me up to tell me the babysitter was asleep in a chair in front of the TV. We decided to tie her up and managed to do it with as many rolls of toilet paper as we could find. She was basically mummified. As our parents opened the door, she woke up. All I know is that my parents were in hysterical laughter while this poor woman was in a panic trying to get free. Technically, it was my mother babysitting, but I was there as well. My mom babysat this kid who we'll call Ben. Ben was only a couple years old, not sure of the exact age, maybe 4 or 5, and he seemed like a pretty nice kid at first. His mom brought him with a couple movies to watch, Disney movies and the like, and he would sit and happily watch them and giggle like the little kid he was. But after a couple days, he's sitting there watching some movie, and he says something like, I wanna watch a different movie. And so we're like, well, you've got a bunch of movies here. What do you want to watch? Freddy Krueger. Both me and my mom are like, what? How do you even know what that is? And he says me and my brother watch Freddy and Jason all the time. So we're like, no way. They'd never show a little kid something like that. He probably just heard about them from somewhere. So he goes back to watching his kid's movie, but a few minutes later, without warning, he leans backwards and looks at us upside down. He was sitting in front of us and says in this raspy, creepy voice, "Freddy is gonna come and kill you in your sleep." And then he smiles and giggles happily like he didn't just say something terrifying and goes back to watching his movie. So we asked his mom about it, and yes, apparently she did in fact let he and his much older brother watch horror movies. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.